London was founded as a settlement known as Londinium, and the museum contains some of the finest collections of Roman artefacts in the country. I spoke to one of the museum's curators about some of the fascinating objects the museum houses.
Life in Roman London would have been quite a challenge to start with. There is no settlement here, there's no town, no city when the Romans first come. They invade Britain in 43 AD, and by about 50 we know that the settlement, the town of Londinium, has been established here on the bank of the Thames. So we're here at the edge of the Roman Empire, an empire that stretches all the way to the eastern Mediterranean and to North Africa. So here in Britain we really are on the northwestern edge. Londinium is founded on the Thames because it's a good crossing point. When the Romans arrived here, there would have been plentiful supplies of timber, of clay for making bricks and tiles and pots, and also fresh water. There are streams that run down into the Thames here, and also natural spring line. So life would have been a challenge initially, but very quickly we know that the population grows. People would have followed the military. The military would have been the first people coming here, soldiers, but very quickly they're followed by traders, craftspeople as well. And by about AD 60, we know that the population is in the region of probably around about 10,000 people. So that's a real boom town as well. So things are going very well for a lot of people. The problem then is that it's attacked by the native Britons, and as far as we understand it, a lot of people are killed. We don't know how many, that's open to lots of controversy. But certainly most of the town is burnt down and has to be rebuilt almost from scratch. But by about the middle of the 2nd century AD, by about the 120s, 130s, we're seeing a population perhaps as high as 30 or 40,000 people. So again, it's growing very quickly. So for a lot of people living here in London, it would have been a very comfortable lifestyle, a very Romanized sort of lifestyle. But when we look at the population, we have to remember it was a very cosmopolitan place. We have native Britons, we have Romans, people from the Roman Empire, and of course that means in today's terms Spanish, Italians, French, German. People from all over the empire would have been here. They would have been trading, intermarrying, talking, chatting, living life here. And it would have been a combination of soldiers, tradespeople, administrators, many probably also retired soldiers who would have got a portion of land and would have been encouraged to settle here in the new town of Londinium. The walls that you see outside of the window from the Roman gallery are not actually Roman themselves. Those walls are later in date, they're medieval, or some of them are even 19th, early 20th century in date. But the important thing is that they are built on the foundations of the Roman wall. And that stretch of wall is really, really important in terms of the history of Roman London. The wall we look out onto is from about AD 120. It's the western wall of the Roman fort. And then about 80 or so years later, around about 200 AD, the administration decides to build a wall all the way around the settlement. And what they do is they use the older fort walls as part of that city wall. So what we look out onto is actually the line now of the old city wall, which continued in use right through to the medieval period. There are an amazing range of artefacts on display here in the Roman Gallery. We have very little evidence for Roman London surviving above ground today. So really, if you want to find out about Roman London, you have to come to the gallery here to see what life was like. We have lots of different kinds of artefacts. Many of them have come from archaeological excavations over about the last 40 years or so. Many of them also have come from antiquarian discoveries. Perhaps the best known group of artefacts, the most famous that we have here, are the collection of sculptures associated with the Temple of Mithras. The Temple of Mithras was discovered in 1954, and we know from the old Movietone news and things that thousands of people visited the site when it was excavated. And what we have on display are some of the marble sculptures that would have decorated that temple. Mithraism was a mysterious cult. It had come from the East, and it flourishes here in Britain, particularly towards the end of the Roman period. We're constantly bringing in new finds as they're discovered through archaeology in the City of London. And what we have on display here are a hoard of about 43 gold coins, which were discovered near Fenchurch Street in the city in 2000. These coins date to the 1st and 2nd century AD, so there's a range of different emperors illustrated on them. And when you look at them, you can see those portraits of the emperors really clearly. And this was really important to think about for Roman Londoners. They are so far away from Rome, they're never going to see their emperor. But when they hold one of the coins in their hand, that reminds them that they're part of the Roman Empire. My favourite artefact, it's perhaps a little bit unusual. It's a pair of leather bikini briefs. Now, we call them bikini briefs, but we don't really know who wore them, aside from definitely a woman. There are 2 pairs on display in the gallery, but we know that we have about 6 pairs from Roman London, and this is unparalleled anywhere else. We don't really know who would have worn them. There's a lot of discussion about whether they might have been worn by young women as acrobats or in gymnasiums, but there's nothing to say that they weren't actually worn by everyday women. They are beautifully made. They would have been quite comfortable, made from goatskin leather, so quite a thin leather. One of the highlights of our galleries, we have room settings which show off the artefacts in the way they would have been used. So just behind me you can see a Roman kitchen, and all of the pots, all of the glass vessels and so on are all original items from our collections. The Bucklersbury mosaic was discovered in 1869. Workmen were building the modern Queen Victoria Street and they uncovered the mosaic. Straight away, people realised what an amazing discovery this was, and the site was opened up to the public for 3 days. We know that in the region of 50,000 people came to visit to see the mosaic. Because it was so important, it was lifted and was put on display in the old Guildhall Museum, subsequently coming here to the Museum of London, where it's always been on display. This mosaic is typical of the kind of mosaic that would have been in a public room of a very well-to-do private house. Here we have set it up to be as if it's in a triclinium, a Roman dining room. And the design itself is made up of geometric designs and also floral motifs. The central motif is a very simplified petal design. We know when it was discovered that an underfloor heating system was found underneath it, and this confirms the fact that this would have been a very well-to-do house. It would have had heating as well as this beautifully decorated floor.